Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wassalamu ala Rasulullah. We'll continue reading from Imam Al-Ghazali's Kitab Sharh Ajaib al-Qalb, The Marvels of the Heart. This is book 21 of Ihya Ulumuddin, The Revival of the Religious Sciences, the Islamic Sciences. Translated by Walter James Skelly. We are on page 60 and we have unfinished business here. This is chapter 9, an exposition of the difference in rank between the two positions by a tangible example. And the image there is that if you have a reservoir, a pond, a water fountain, not like sometimes when you people could, and you might have seen it probably either personally or on TV or on YouTube somewhere, that people keep digging and until water bears from the ground, so they reach basically the subterranean aquifer or a source of water. You could also, on the other hand, not dig, for deep inside, let's call it, and just bring the streams of water, the rivers, direct them to your reservoir, and thus you will have water. And so one would be from outside, if you will, and one from outside. The one from outside is the senses channeling information to the heart's reservoir, and the second one is simply digging deep until you find that water, that knowledge, which is practically not available. What you are looking for is not available through the senses. And we have reached the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. Certain texts would contextualize this hadith as being in the on the outskirts of Mecca. Let's call it a mountain called Jamd or Jamad, and the Prophet ﷺ mentioned something. سبق المفردون and will المفردون. We have it both, and Imam Zabidi in his commentary on on this hadith, on the text of Ihya Ulumuddin, really, in Ithaf Sad al-Muttaqin, he said about mufarridun or mufridun, and also about the short vowels on the ra, but let's simply keep it light and talk about this, whether it is the ra is stressed or simply not stressed, let's call it takhfif. And takhfif is, he says that this is what Imam al-Tirmidhi, al-Hakim al-Tirmidhi chose. That's his choice of that is takhfif. And he said that the al-Jumhur, like most scholars, narrated it, and they chose that it is a tashdid, stressed. So mufarridun for the Jumhur. And there are other issues about the short vowel on the ra. There are those who said that it is مفتوحة, so it is ra, and those who said it's maksura, mri. That does not indicate accusative or genitive in this case. Simply the way it is read. But the hadith itself, and let's read the English translation. The Prophet ﷺ said, men, translated, we have read this, but men of a single thought have taken the lead. Men of a single thought. Men who, it's not a single thought per se, except that this is the word thought is in a bracket. Mufarridun is simply you have those who singled out something. Okay, those people have taken the lead, sabaq, and of course the lead ultimately is about a lead in rank, a lead in the in terms of the hereafter. He was asked, the Prophet ﷺ, O Messenger of God, who are they? He answered, those who are devoted to the remembrance of God, the Exalted. Now, up till this point, even Imam Zabidi said, Al-Qal al-Iraqi, the Imam al-Iraqi, al-Hafiz al-Iraqi, in his Takhrij, in verifying the authenticity of the hadith, said that this part is narrated by Imam Muslim from the narration of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu. Up till this okay. And Al-Hakim narrated the part, the phrase, the addendum fuel الذين يستهترون في ذكر الله, and he said that this part is صحيح على شرط الشيخين. There are those who would probably not accept it as but since Al-Hakim said صحيح على شرط الشيخين, meaning that this part of the hadith does fulfill the conditions, the criteria, the criterion of both Imam Bukhari and Muslim. Next, for this remembrance, dhikr of theirs has put away from them their load of sin, and they come to the resurrection unburdened. This is this part, this phrase was added. It does appear in the hadith of Tirmidhi, يضع الذكر عنهم أثقالهم فيأتون يوم القيامة خفافا. And he said, Imam Tirmidhi, hadith hasan, gharib, and so is the Tabarani in Al-Mu'jam al-Kabir from the narration of Abu Darda, without the added phrase. Imam Zabidi said both are weak narrations, the added part. Okay. Now, Imam Zabidi said that he mentions more details about the other possible the variations of this hadith, and I can say that other than the part that Imam Muslim narrated, what Imam Zabidi added was at the end of each paragraph. He would say, for example, in the first one, وسنده ضعيف لضعف شيخي فيه عبد الله بن سعيد بن أبي مريم, meaning that this is the reason why the added part in this particular one in the mentioned by Tabarani rendered weak because of Abdullah bin Sayyid bin Abi Maryam. The also another variation, and it has a part which probably might show up in a different hadith, but as is إن السابقين الذين يهترون بذكر الله عز وجل من أحب أن يرتع في رياض الجنة فليكثر من ذكر الله. The one of the narrators of this hadith is Musa, like on the chain there is Musa bin Ubaida. He is ضعيف, but Imam Zabidi said it is strengthened by the hadith of Abu Huraira, the one mentioned by Imam Muslim. And this is enough really about the hadith. Suffice it to say that we have the hadith of Imam Muslim, which is absolutely sound. The Al-Mufridun, Al-Mufarridun, both are those who are devoted to the remembrance of God. So this is really more than good enough. Then you have the hadith, part of the hadith, which is really Qudsi, as we mentioned earlier. ثم قال تعالى ثم قال في وصفهم إخبارا عن الله تعالى فقال ثم أقبل وجهي عليهم أترى من واجهت بوجهي يعلم أحد أي شيء أريد أن أعطيه. ثم قال تعالى أول ما أعطيهم أن أقذف النور في قلوبهم فيخبرون عني كما أخبر عنهم. Then he described them by relating the statement of God the Exalted. Then I shall draw near with my face toward them, facing them face to face. Do you, of course, always ليس كمثله شيء. Nothing resembles Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, nothing's like unto him. Do you think that anyone knows what thing I desire to bestow upon him toward whom I turn my face? Then he, the Exalted subhanahu wa ta'ala, said, the first thing I give them is that I cast light into their hearts, and they give tidings of me even as I give tidings of them. And there is a comment that they could not find the source. Then Imam Ghazali continues, the entrance for these tidings is the inner door, al-babu al-batin. So this is the difference between the knowledge of the prophets and saints, the awliya. In fact, in Arabic, at least the text of Zabidi mentions al-awliya before, which is peculiar. So this is the difference between the knowledge of the prophets and the saints, and that saints and the prophets, and that of the learned and the philosophers. The learned, the scholars, the hukama. The knowledge of the former comes from within the heart through the door that is open toward the world of spirits. The world of spirits, okay, because they wanted to translate عالم الملكوت. This is what we witness is عالم الملك, and what is absent from us at this stage is عالم الملكوت. The other worldly, the other domain of God. whereas the knowledge of the philosophers comes through the doors of the senses and that open to the material world. It begins with the senses. It begins with the senses, but of course, f- philosophy is definitely not really restricted to the knowledge. Let's say it begins with the senses, and that's normal path for the overwhelming majority of people. You might say, is there a different beginning? Oh yes. If we say Jesus Christ, peace upon him, uh, he spoke uh, in the cradle, and as we say, he addressed his mother, Maryam alayhi salam, at the moment of birth. He called, he called, he called her, he called on her from beneath her. Okay, do not despair, do not be sad. God has created a ravine of water for you, and do shake the palm tree and rutab, fresh, ripened dates. So that which is between balah and tamr. So it is. They are sweet, brown, but they are still moist, not dry dates. So he spoke. This is why she went home with Jesus Christ, peace upon him, with her son. And when her family asked about the whereabouts of this baby, of course they mentioned your father was not a bad person, and your mother was not a bad woman. In fact, a prostitute. Uh, and she was known, that she did not have. She was not married, of course. And she brought, the context was sent a message to her family. This is my baby, the context. And she pointed to Jesus Christ. How did she know that he speaks? فأشارت إليه. And they exclaimed, how do we speak basically with a babe? And then he spoke. He spoke. إني عبد الله أتاني الكتاب وجعل نبيا وجعلني مباركا أينما كنت. So this is really the Jesus Christ basically having well, he was enabled to speak, and he already even as a babe knew that he was already a, a prophet, but his vocation as a prophet would like the Quran would not really mention anything thereafter this context. So he shows up, Jesus Christ peace upon him, as an adult man, a prophet, a messenger of God, calling people for the path of God. All prophets in the Quran, their message to their people, in terms of theology, in terms of belief, and Abdullah ma lakum min ilahin ghayruh. That's the message. Some of them address certain social ills that prevailed in their respective societies. Okay. So we said that the philosophers, philosophy is the problem with philosophy is that when we talk about metaphysics, and this is the position of Imam Al-Ghazali, uh, when we talk about metaphysics, then we talk about the possibility of simply coming up with conjectures you know, uh, is uh, is normative. I would say if we talk about the creation of this world in from Plato's philosophy. Uh, that's really the type of metaphysics that Imam Al-Ghazali would reject. Um, Aristotle's prime mover, if would be also something that would be rejected. The Imam Ghazali rendered, of course, in Tahaft philosophy, the philosophers as non-believers on three accounts, 17, bid'ah innovations. That is, the universe is co-eternal with God, that al-alam qadim. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows the universes and not the particulars, and that they deny the resurrection of the dead. So metaphysics, that's where the Imam Ghazali had his most the rejection, let's say, his critique of the philosophers. And the fact that here it is mentioned, they talk about that the senses are open to this material world. Of course, it restricts the metaphysics. You need basically revelation to know what's going on. The story of creation, the that this life is ultimately, this particular life is um temporary, and that there's a day of resurrection, a day of judgment, and there is an eternal life, the hereafter. You need revelation for all of this. And certain things, of course, our human knowledge, cumulative human knowledge, will always fall short in this respect unless there is some direct revelation about this. You can intellectually, rationally verify the truth validity of a claim, but other than this, the substance is cannot be produced by human endeavor. It's not something that could be achieved by the philosopher. The wonders of the world of the heart and its wavering between the visible and invisible worlds cannot be fully dealt with in a study of the knowledge of proper conduct. But this is an example that will teach you the difference of the entrance of the two kinds of knowledge. The second example will explain to you the difference between the two types of action, by which I mean the action of the learned and that of the saints. The learned work to acquire knowledge itself and gather it into the heart, but the saints among the Sufis labor only with the goal of polishing, cleansing, clarifying, and brightening the heart. The story is told, and this is a nice story, really, if one could remember this. The story is told that once the Chinese and the Byzantines, the Rum, vied with one another before a certain king as to the beauty of their workmanship in decorating and painting. So the king decided to give over to them a portico so that the Chinese might decorate one side of it and the Byzantines the other side, and to let a curtain hang down between them so as to prevent either group from looking at the other. And he did so. The Byzantines gathered together countless strange colors, but the Chinese entered without any color at all and began to polish their side and to brighten it. When the Byzantines had finished painting, decorating, coloring, the Chinese claimed that they had finished also. The king was astonished at their statement and the way in which they had finished the decorating without any color at all. So they were asked, "How have you finished the work without any color?" They replied, "You are not responsible for us. Lift the veil, the curtain." So they lifted it, and behold, on their side there shone forth the wonders of the Byzantine skill with added illumination and dazzling brilliance. Since that side since that side became like unto a polished mirror by reason of much brightening. Thus the beauty of their side was increased by its added clearness. The care of the saints in cleansing, polishing, purifying, and clarifying the heart until the true nature of the real shines, the real. حتى يتلألأ فيه جلية الحق بنهاية الإشراق, until the true nature of the real shines forth clearly therein with utmost illumination, is like the work of the Chinese, the care of the learned and the philosophers in acquiring and adorning knowledge, and the representation of this adornment in the heart is like the work of the Byzantines. We still have few pages of chapter 9. Rather than hastening to read, I would rather postpone these few pages until the next session, inshallah. Until then, سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.